Well, hello again, angels. Welcome back to another episode of Sense, Feel, Transform. This is now episode 7 of the Unexpected Accidental podcast. And it is the just past the halfway point of what I will call season 1, the first dozen episodes. These first 12 episodes being playful, experimental, improvised, and really a practice of being with my voice after many years, as I mentioned in episode 2, of not pursuing the podcast that I knew I wanted to create, and of exploration, of expression, and with the intention from season 2 of coming to this podcast with a more intentional, more strategic, and more, in some ways, conventional format that I hope will have be all the more impactful, all the more powerful for this first season of improvised jazz that we're working with. So halfway through this season, there's so much that I feel called to explore in these episodes. And today, gosh, this episode especially, I've had a lot of different things vying for my attention, vying for potential exploration. But I think what feels most important to me to get into today, what is most alive today, is the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, as I call it, in my work with my mostly women and femme clients. And we'll likely get a little bit into my own experience of my own heroine's journey. But it's incredibly tied in with other archetypal experiences, the human condition, at least the conscious seeking human condition, is one of constant death and rebirth. And in ancient and indigenous cultures, these deaths and rebirths are given shape, they're given form in the form of rituals, ceremonies, rites of passage. And we get those to some degree in this Western overculture that we, for the most part, share. And yet the substance seems to have drained somewhat out of them or become unattainable for some. I would say my 2 biggest initiations into adulthood had nothing to do with my 18th or 21st birthday celebrations or my graduating from either one of my degrees, and a lot more to do with starting a business and getting married, which I actually did pretty much at the same time. Those were the initiations that were both in some way ceremonial and also not accessible, not guaranteed to all, nor did my initiation into marriage or my initiation into business really acknowledge what I was taking on, what the transformation I was undergoing. And both, in fact, were a shock to me on the other side. So, with that in mind, let's talk about initiations, rites of passage, the heroine's journey, what these things have in common, what they require of us, how we experience them, and how we can learn to embrace them with awareness in a way that allows us to experience them with less suffering, because there will be pain, but there does not need to be suffering. And ultimately, learn to meet these times in our lives with a greater sense of equanimity, of courage, and a belief in there being an end point, there being a culmination. And I'm actually going to start with another contrast between Western and Indigenous cultures that I think is one of the most crucial fractures we in the Western European colonial traditions are suffering with. And that is the concept, the notion of life and progress and growth as linear. This opposed to the Indigenous understanding of all things as cyclical. At some point, the culture that has colonized so many others grasped onto the idea that life was a straight line from birth to death. And perhaps with industry and capitalism, that straight line, that horizontal straight line, became an upward ticking straight line. The line we all want to see on a graph when it comes time to review our quarterly finances, for instance. This straight, uncomplicated line from okay to amazing. 0 to 1,000,000. This is very much tied to our capitalist mentality, ideology, right? This myth that a good life, a successful life, is just about an upward trajectory. I don't know about you, but born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, as a child, that was the that was the theory. You go to school, you go to university, you get a good job, you meet a nice person, you get married, you buy a house, you get a better job, you earn more money, you get a better job, you earn more money, you have a child. It was, and never in that vision was there the idea that, or the space for things like failing, having setbacks, um, getting divorced, um, having a mental health crisis and having to stop work, or wanting to change industries or careers and therefore going back to school or taking a job that paid less because it was aligned with your actual value system. There's very little space in that vision of a heroic life or the ideal life trajectory, for what has proved in my experience to be real life. And I will be honest, even this weekend, I was in Toronto for a friend's wedding celebration, and in very rarefied surroundings. We were on the 54th floor of this very beautiful glass and steel building, views of the CN Tower, of Lake Ontario, in a room full of very successful, traditionally successful, wealthy people who, by the way, were delightful. Every one of whom I met was incredibly warm and lovely, which challenged some of my own expectations as a relative stranger to this dynamic, to this group. What I can tell you is that those people, the people that I connected with there, were no happier, did not feel a great deal safer or more secure or sure of their path, for having got there, for having achieved and accomplished those archetypes of success that I and many of my generation, of my culture, were raised to shoot for. And in fact, what I witnessed there was a great deal of suffering under the very beautiful, put together, well turned out, well dressed. I don't want to say facade because that's unfair. We all place, we all cultivate our appearance. That's just part of being a human being, and it can be as celebratory as it can be potentially pretentious. But I want to acknowledge that there was a tangible and witnessable difference between the external presentation and the internal feelings of the people that I talked with and connected with, in this place where, it felt like these people were the kind of people to have reached the upper echelons, of this city, of this very in this part of downtown, very sparkly, very expensive, very challenging, and quite honestly, quite a brutal city, I think, to live in. I don't want to get too off track here, but I felt it was important to note that distinction, because I don't feel like ultimately I succeeded in attaining those external badges of success, or at least when I have, because I have gotten the degrees, I have gotten the good, well paying job. I have hit six figures in my business. I have married the love of my life. I have actually hit a lot of these markers. For me, my experience of doing so was that they tended to feel very different to what I thought they would feel. Even marrying the love of my life, which proved to be arguably the very best decision of my life, felt not like the accomplishment, the attainment of my, the kind of apex of my achievements, or any confirmation of my success or validity as a woman that maybe I subconsciously thought that it would. It stripped me of a lot of my confidence and the things that I felt sure about myself, because it showed me in each time I've obtained a goal, making six figures in my business, for instance, marrying the love of my life, what I've experienced on the other side very quickly of that decision, going full time in my business and going out on my own, is that what I thought it would do for me, what I thought it would make things mean about me, it didn't do that. Having a six-figure year in my business did not make me feel safer financially or physically, emotionally. Marrying the love of my life did not validate me. And this is often where the initiations actually begin, right? On the other side of the win, the accomplishment. In a hero's journey, and let's go back to that upward linear line, we climb the literal mountain and we fight the literal monsters to obtain the grail. And then we come down from the mountain and we return to life a hero. But when we're not, the problem with the goals that our culture has laid out for us is that they seem so set in stone that it's very difficult to actually connect with the truth of whether we individually value that desire, that goal, that thing, or not. And then, even if we do desire that goal, I did want to go into business for myself. I did want to marry this man. I did want to make six figures in my business. The reasons for doing so, or the expectations of what that's going to mean for us or do for us, become they become the reason, they become the desire itself. And then when reality doesn't meet our expectations, on the other side of these accomplishments, we feel empty or confused or completely fucking bewildered and in shock and afraid. Because if this isn't going to mean that I finally feel like I've made it, that I finally feel like I'm a success, then what the hell is? And this is part of the way that envisioning our life course as a spiral, as cyclical and yet expanding, can be so much more powerful. I just want you to, if it's safe to do so, and you feel safe to do so, I invite you to close your eyes and see yourself standing in a wide open space. It could be a field or beach, a desert, somewhere with wide open space to walk, to roam, and to return. And this point where you stand is like an X. X marks the spot. And here is where you, the fundamentalness of you, always are. And so you leave that spot knowing that you're coming back. And you step out. And you walk in a circle. And you return to the X. Regather, recenter. And then you step out in a wider circle. You look about you, enjoy the view, discover new things about this new territory, and you come back to X. Back to self, back to center, back to simplicity, and then step out again in an even wider arc. We are cyclical beings. We can't not be. Everything within our universe is a spiral or a cycle or a radiating, ever-expanding circle. Just like the seasons of our physical world, our inner worlds hold the same shaping. You can see it in patterns that arise over time, in your behavior, in your energy, in your activity. You might see yourself returning again and again to a lesson that you wish and you were sure that you had learned. Here it is again. Here it is again. Here it is again to teach you a lesson that you're here to learn and expand through. Expansion and contraction is the natural rhythm of life. We cannot go as the crow flies across the terrain of our life. We don't have wings. We don't fly straight. We don't walk straight. We can't, because the land does not allow this. Sometimes we have to walk around something. Sometimes we have to turn back and try another way. Always, we have the choice to expand. But what's so important about expanding into new horizons, new experiences, new adventures, new periods in our life is that as we expand and go out, we must allow ourselves to contract and come home. This is our nervous system at work. Go too far outside of your comfort zone without returning to yourself, to the comfort of what is relatively familiar, and you're going to stretch your nervous system's capacity beyond its availability. And this is how we traumatize and re-traumatize ourselves. And when a nervous system is out of balance, we see this happening all the time. It can look like burnout. It can look like swings from anxiety to depression, mental health crises. Because instead of spiraling, we're maybe zagging up and then collapsing all the way down. This was a pattern for me for a long time. I was ambitious. I was hardworking. I was primed by a culture that really defined one's value by the hard, the how hard you worked, how hard you grinded, how hard you were. Like, to say someone was well hard in England in the time when I was growing up was a compliment to their resilience, their ability to just take it on the chin and keep going. And as an ideology, there's a lot to be said for resilience, but it doesn't, in my experience, actually, resilience is not just pushing yourself without any regard for your actual physical, mental, emotional capacity to manage and to healthily digest the experience of all that hard work. So in this upward trajectory of 0 to 100, there's no room for the body to acclimatize. There's no opportunity for the body to slow down, to regulate, to integrate all of the change, and therefore come to terms with and get used to this new reality. And I see this happening a lot with highly ambitious people. Wanting to walk before you can run. Wanting so much, but not having the nervous system capacity to hold that much. And this is one reason why in 2020, when I made $50,000 in the first 5 months of the year, by 5 months later, I was completely burned out. None of that money remained. Not only was I overreaching, pushing myself, and due to the conditions of that year of COVID, Black Lives Matter, the riots, the race riots, the unrest, just the intensity of all of it, and my feeling of responsibility of I need to be supporting small and local businesses, I need to be lifting up Black voices, all of these things being true, but in my state of hyper arousal, of fight, flight, fawn, just the whole survival cycle going around and around, I was not coming from a place of groundedness. I was not returning to my center. I was trying to push forward into financial and entrepreneurial success, the capitalist model of mass and constant upward growth, throwing money here and there to anyone and everyone who I felt needed it. Feeling completely disconnected from myself and burning myself out, so that then the second half of the year I was unable to work. I was unable to make sales. I could barely deliver, any more work, even if I had been able to make the sales. I'm not sure if I'm an extreme version of this pattern or not. I don't work typically with fellow entrepreneurs, so I know that this is not an uncommon story. I wonder how acute my story is. It certainly caused a lot of chaos in my life. And that is a pattern that has repeated itself throughout my adolescence and adulthood. It used to look like going to work, working my butt off, excelling, being extraordinary, being told to slow down by my bosses, and every couple of months or so finding myself stuck in bed, lying horizontal, staring vacantly at or towards in the relative location of a screen, with something like Friends or Family Guy playing nonstop on Netflix, and I would lie there for days. Totally taken down by the depression, by fawn. We've internalized the hero's journey without thinking about how, for the most part, in real life, it just doesn't look like a constant upward trajectory. Think about the people who climb Mount Everest. I'm pretty sure that the hardest thing about climbing Mount Everest is not even the climb. It's the fact that you have to stop at base camps, wait at base camps, climb, and then come back down, and then climb the same stretch again. Because if they did not do that, the body would fail. The body would collapse. And here is another theme that I wanted to talk to you about today. And I'm glad that it's come up through here, because the body's pace is far slower than this culture would have you feel you need to move. These returns to self are not that forward trajectory, but they are so necessary for integration, for regulation. You are not an arrow being let loose from a bow. You're a cyclical, earthly creature. You have seasons. You have periods of growth, periods of breaking down, periods of lightness and ease and abundance, periods where you go to ground. Just like the seasons outside of ourselves, so we have seasons within ourselves. And this is where rites of passage are really so important to understand. Because when we encounter these times of great discomfort that herald huge transformation, we feel typically afraid. Oh no, things are going wrong. I'm experiencing conflict in this job that used to bring me joy. I'm sensing some unease in this relationship that's so important to me. I'm feeling like I don't really belong in this friendship group anymore. I'm finding that this job that I took that I thought was going to be the answer to all of my problems is potentially a nightmare job. I married the love of my life and I feel confused and disillusioned and not myself. I've lost this person in my life and I don't know what way is up. These times, happy or sad, of great change are initiations. They are transitory times. We have left who we were, often without really realizing it, until all of a sudden, this is not who we are anymore. What's even scarier is not only are we not who we were, but we don't know yet who we're becoming. In traditional rites of passage, including the vision quest, there are 3 stages. The first is separation. You leave the village, so to speak, or you leave the life that you have been living. The next is initiation, transformation. And this is the longest and the most uncomfortable and often the most terrifying and bewildering and confusing. We're in a liminal space. We're not who we were. We're not who we're going to be. We're in process of transforming from one to the other. This is why the caterpillar to the butterfly metaphor is such an incredibly useful one to us, because we can see in that natural process something of what the internal process for us looks and feels like. So the caterpillar goes about being a caterpillar. It's eating all of the leaves, it's shooping around, and then one day it knows it's time to create a cocoon, to separate. It creates its cocoon and separates. What happens in that cocoon? That caterpillar melts into what can only be described as primordial goo. It doesn't just poop, become a butterfly overnight. It disintegrates, it dissolves into just this goo of potential. In that goo is the makeup of what it will become in all of its complexity, and its complete transformation. But it does not become that transformation overnight. It takes time. It takes trust. It takes surrender to the natural forces. And in life, whether we choose to shed an identity or it is shed on our behalf, and whether that happens through a happy event like a wedding or having a child, or whether it happens through a crisis like a burnout or a death in the family or in your close friendship group, whatever the catalyst, the process has no specific timeline. All we can know is that we have lost something. And it's incredibly unsettling, uncomfortable, and probably terrifying. All the more so because we have not been raised to anticipate that this is a natural part of the rhythm of life. This is a natural part of the human experience. This is, in fact, an inevitable experience of the evolving, growing soul. Because whether it's a good event or a bad event, whether you made it happen or it happened to you, your soul always seeks expansion. Your body and your mind typically want comfort. Your animal body wants safety and comfort. Your lizard brain, your ego wants safety and comfort, whether it just has its own weird ideas about what that's going to mean. These difficult times are certainly difficult. They're certainly uncomfortable. And yet, they are also the terrain in which your soul has the opportunity to expand. By being in this state of liminality, of transition, you are given the invitation to grow, to find something truer for you. And there are two ways to respond to this. One is fearfully, with more resistance. I don't want to change. I don't want to change this. I don't want to change that. I'm devastated. Please, I just want to go back. All of which is totally understandable. But none of which actually supports you in alleviating the pain and discomfort. It's only when we open to the experience, ask, okay, it's happening. Whether I want it to or not, it's happening. I'm here. I'm uncomfortable. I don't feel like I know who I am. I'm in a lot of discomfort, maybe even emotional pain. And because I'm resisting that pain, not only am I experiencing pain, but now I'm suffering. Because suffering happens only when you resist feeling pain. And I will keep that to emotional pain and suffering. I cannot speak for the experience of chronic pain. And so I'm not going to here. That's another conversation. So can you surrender to this feeling of bewilderment, of being lost, of being unsure, uncertain how to proceed? Can you accept these terms and remember that they are temporary? That even though you haven't done so consciously or by choice, you are on a vision quest. You are in the transformative portal of an initiation. You are the primordial goo. Not yet the butterfly, but you will become the butterfly. And you will become a more glorious butterfly if you can take the time that it takes for your primordial goo to evolve. And I say this from personal experience. Oh my God, I don't even know how many times I've become primordial goo just in the 7 years that I've been in business for myself. And the majority of those transformative portal processes have been extremely ungraceful. extremely painful, filled with suffering, filled with resistance, filled with struggling, grasping, trying to find the thing that's going to fix the situation or going to fix me. And I can say from all of those experiences that those solutions, the things that I thought were going to snap me out of it or pull me out of that transformative in between, who the fuck am I? What the fuck am I doing? How do I make this work for myself? How do I make this better? Anything I tried, any money I invested, any attempt I made to force the issue, to speed up the process, to get myself out of this, those were where I made big mistakes. Not that I would take any of them back, because those were lessons that I needed to learn on my way to becoming the butterfly that I was next destined to be. And as I continue to emerge, not yet fully formed, from the longest vision quest, the longest transformation, the longest gestation period of I've ever allowed myself. Over a year, necessitated by a mental health crisis, facilitated by advice, encouragement, and support from my therapist, from my husband, from my family, from my friends. I want to let you know that this gooey place is such a gift. I know it doesn't feel like it. I know you want to struggle. You just want it to feel better. You just want to have the answer. You just want this to be over with. You just want to get on with your life. This is you getting on with your life in a far more powerful way than just getting on with it could ever be. This is your soul evolving. This is your light, your potential, your conscious awareness, your universal divine consciousness, your life force energy cracking open the seed. It fucking hurts. It fucking hurts to outgrow the size and the shape and the capacity and the potential and the power of your animal body that just wants to be comfortable, of your animal mind that just wants the answers, of your ego that just wants. It is uncomfortable. And it is humbling. And it asks you to do that which is counter to our culture. Because it asks you to slow down. It asks you to be present. It asks you to listen to the quieter voices of your heart, of your gut, of your body, It asks you to hear what you actually think, what you actually care about, what you actually need. And those things are not outside of you. They cannot be bought. Is money a need and a valid desire? Absolutely. Absolutely. Is a home that's more than just a safe shelter a valid desire? Absolutely. Anything that you want and desire from a genuine place is valid. And it's not going to bring you what you think it's going to bring you, if that is the point. If that is the purpose. What I was seeking from I'll rephrase that. What I was expecting from succeeding in my career, earning lots of money, starting my own business, marrying the love of my life, having that 6-figure year, working for the dream publisher, I expected to feel validated by these accomplishments. I expected for all of my problems, all of the ways that I felt myself lacking or my life lacking, to be answered, to be fulfilled. I expected this next post on this very culturally ingrained narrative journey through life to be the one that would make me feel like I'd finally made it, I'd finally arrived. What I've learned in the constant disappointment of not feeling that way after succeeding in that way, and then the ego death on the other side of realizing, I was hanging my value, my self, my sense of self, my sense of value, my sense of worthiness on this external thing, and it did not deliver. And now I feel betrayed. I feel empty. I feel like life is meaningless. I feel like, what the fuck is the point? I feel like, who even am I? So disillusioned, disappointed, dismayed, confused, because this is the story that I've been told. This is the life I was told to go and get. This is what I was told it was all about. And it's not fucking about it. I'm very grateful that these crises of self, these rites of passage, where I have been separated, often by force, from who I was, thrust into a zero gravity state of being where everything I thought I knew about myself, everything I thought I wanted out of life is now fucking totally thrown in the air, completely like up in just so completely undermined that now I have to question everything about who I am, what I actually want, what really matters to me. What do I really care about? What are my values actually when I'm not pushing them aside in the name of achieving this external measure of success that I've been told makes me valuable, worthy, important, relevant? What do I actually care about? What do I actually value? And this is coming back. I've gone out, I've expanded, I've tried things, I've succeeded, I've failed, and I have to come back to myself. Who am I? If I'm not this and I'm not this and I'm not this, if I'm not my degrees and I'm not my job titles and I'm not my romantic associations and I'm not my Instagram followers number, whatever, and I'm not my paycheck, who the fuck am I? And that stuff is not out there. And the more I go in, the more I connect with myself, the more I remember that there is a place I can return to and that I must return to. Because if I expand and I circle out into that beautiful desert territory, wondering, discovering, finding amazing things, I can get very easily distracted and wander off on a path that is just not actually meant for me, is not resonant with who I am truly on the inside, what I really want. And it's a constant navigation and a constant returning because I'm constantly growing. I'm also expanding. The X is also expanding. It's also learning more and more about itself as we gain information from the world outside of us, as we learn to hold more, to feel more, to meet that outside world with greater courage. How can I do that? By being in close, deep, loving, trusting relationship with my core, my spirit, my soul, my true essence. The third part of the rites of passage after separation, after transition, transformation, is return. Return to the village. Return to the outside world. Coming out of that cocoon, neither a caterpillar nor a glob of primordial goo, but a glorious, totally transformed butterfly. What I'm learning is that none of these stages is better than another. If I get attached to this state of being the butterfly as the ideal state, then I'm again clinging to a state of being that I will inevitably outgrow, that I hope I will continue through my life to evolve beyond. I don't want to be limited by my capacity in each moment to imagine how great, how beautiful, how glorious I can be because I'm feeling good now. Unlike a butterfly, I get to be the caterpillar again. I get in the goo again. I get to be reborn. Another caterpillar, another primordial goo, another butterfly. Expansion and contraction. Adventure and return. Separation, transformation, integration, renewal. This is the truth of our natural rhythm. This is the truth of our nature as products of nature. Products of nature who find themselves subject to a culture that does not honor the fact that we are of nature, that tries to make machines of our natural entities. So I invite you to maybe reflect on your own rites of passage. What have been your experiences of separation, transformation, and return? Where are you now? Where are you now in that process? And if you're in that liminal stage between one self and another, if you're feeling lost or confused, if you're feeling scared, if you're feeling like this life that you've been living doesn't fit anymore, but you don't have the answers for the life that does fit, know that that is more than okay. That you are in a natural cycle that is necessary to your continued evolution, personal growth, expansion. Just as your lungs expand and contract in order to complete the cycle of your breathing, as your heart expands and contracts to complete the cycle of circulation, just as your belly expands and contracts as it works on the cycle of digestion. You are an expanding, contracting, always growing, always evolving being. And the more that you can trust that process, the less suffering you will experience, even as you undergo painful at times, uncomfortable at times transformation. And that is where nervous system regulation work, somatic work, can really support you, so that your animal body is not setting off the fire alarm and causing more havoc and more challenges and more flailing than is necessary. If this resonates with you and you are indeed in this transitional liminal phase and you do feel overwhelmed, afraid, incredibly attached and invested to the outcome, if you're suffering and you would like to talk to me as a somatic practitioner and discuss how we might be able to support you in remaining regulated so that you can really be connected in to that X, so that you can stay grounded even in times of dissolution. Check out the show notes. There's a link there to book a quick discovery call with me. If nothing else, I can show you another quick and easy and accessible tool for your toolbox. We can talk about walking together. You can just tell me what's up. Thank you for being here with me. I hope this episode has brought you some comfort, some perspective, some hard-earned insight and wisdom from yours truly. Until next time, I love you. Take care. Breathe deep. See you next time.